Justin Bieber, the boy the internet chose to hate. Some people spend their entire lives chasing fame. Years of work. Years of sacrifice. Years of being ignored before anyone finally notices them. But every once in a while, someone becomes famous before they even have the chance to understand what fame really is. History is filled with examples. Mozart was performing for European royalty while most children his age were still learning how to read. Michael Jackson became a global sensation before he was old enough to live a normal childhood. Britney Spears became one of the biggest stars on the planet while still trying to figure out who she was. And in the late 2000s, the world witnessed another child star unlike anything it had seen before. Not through television. Not through radio. But through the internet. His name was Justin Bieber. At 13 years old, Justin was just a kid from a small Canadian town posting singing videos on YouTube. A few years later, he was one of the most recognizable people on earth. Millions of people adored him. Millions of others seemed to despise him. His songs were everywhere. His face was everywhere. His name was everywhere. For an entire generation, escaping Justin Bieber was almost impossible. But something strange happened. As his fame grew larger, so did the hatred. People mocked his voice. His hair. His music. His fans. Some even built entire online communities dedicated to making fun of him. Others sent death threats. And perhaps the strangest part of all was this. The target of all that hatred wasn't a grown man. It was a teenager. A child. Looking back today, the most interesting question isn't how Justin Bieber became famous. The real question is, what happens when the entire world places its spotlight on a child before that child has had the chance to grow up? Because Justin Bieber's story isn't just the story of a pop star. It's the story of what fame can do to someone when it arrives too early. And why becoming the most famous kid in the world might be far more dangerous than it seems. If you ask most people what they remember about Justin Bieber, you'll probably get very different answers. Some remember the teenage heartthrob who dominated the charts with songs like Baby. Others remember the headlines. The arrests. The scandals. The videos that seem to show a young star slowly losing control. And that's exactly what makes Justin Bieber such an interesting case. Because his story follows a pattern that we've seen over and over again throughout modern entertainment history. A talented child is discovered. The child becomes famous at an incredible speed. The world falls in love with them. Then, as the years pass, the same world begins to turn against them. The pressure grows. The expectations become impossible. And eventually, something breaks. We've seen versions of this story with Britney Spears. With Drew Barrymore. With Macaulay Culkin. With countless child actors, musicians, and athletes who were forced to grow up under public scrutiny. Justin Bieber wasn't the first. But he may have been one of the most visible examples. Unlike previous generations of child stars, Justin grew up during the rise of social media. Every mistake became content. Every rumor became news. Every awkward phase of adolescence became a global discussion. Most teenagers are allowed to make mistakes in private. Justin Bieber made his mistakes in front of millions of people. And that changes everything. Because fame doesn't just give someone attention. It changes the environment in which they grow up. It changes the people around them. It changes how they see themselves. And sometimes, it changes them so much that they barely recognize who they've become. The story of Justin Bieber is not simply about music. It's not even really about celebrity. It's about what happens when a child is asked to carry the expectations of an entire industry. An industry that profits from success. But often has no idea what to do when that success starts destroying the person behind it. To understand how Justin Bieber became one of the most famous people on the planet, we have to go back to the beginning. Back to a small city in Ontario, Canada. Back to a time when Justin Bieber was just a kid with a guitar, a camera, and absolutely no idea that his life was about to change forever. Justin Drew Bieber was born on March 1, 1994, in London, Ontario, Canada. At first glance, there was nothing about his early life that suggested he would become one of the biggest stars in the world. In fact, his childhood was surprisingly ordinary. Shortly after his birth, his parents separated. His mother, Patty Millett, found herself raising Justin largely on her own. Money was often tight. She worked a series of low-paying administrative jobs while relying on support from her family to help make ends meet. Despite the financial struggles, Justin's childhood wasn't defined by hardship. By most accounts, it was a happy one. He loved sports. Like many Canadian kids, he played hockey. He enjoyed soccer and basketball. And somewhere along the way, he developed a deep interest in music. What made Justin stand out wasn't formal training. It was how quickly he taught himself. He learned to play the piano, the drums, the guitar, the trumpet. For the most part, he figured things out on his own. Then he started singing. In 2007, when Justin was 12 years old, he entered a local singing competition. Performing Neo's So Sick, he finished in second place. For most children, that would have been the end of the story. A fun memory. A local event. Something to talk about years later. But Justin's mother decided to record the performance. And afterward, she uploaded the video to YouTube. Not because she was trying to launch a career. Not because she had some grand plan for her son. She simply wanted family members who couldn't attend a competition to watch the performance online. At the time, YouTube was still a relatively young platform. Nobody could have predicted what would happen next. Patty continued uploading videos. Justin singing covers. Justin playing instruments. Justin performing on the streets with his guitar. The videos were simple. No professional cameras. No expensive production. No major label support. Just a talented kid sharing music online. And people started paying attention. The audience grew steadily. View after view. Subscriber after subscriber. Then, in 2008, one person stumbled across those videos. A talent manager named Scooter Braun. Braun wasn't searching for the next global superstar. At least not consciously. But when he watched Justin perform, he immediately saw something special. The voice. The charisma. The natural confidence in front of a camera. He believed the kid had real potential. So he began tracking him down. Eventually, Braun located Justin's school and repeatedly tried to get in contact with his mother. Looking back, the story sounds almost unbelievable. But it worked. After convincing Patty to give him a chance, Braun invited Justin and his mother to Atlanta to record some demo tracks. That trip would change everything. Because while Justin was in Atlanta, something happened that neither he nor his family could have anticipated. Inside a recording studio, Justin crossed paths with one of the biggest names in music. Usher. The meeting was largely accidental. But after hearing Justin sing, Usher quickly became convinced that the teenager had extraordinary potential. Soon, Scooter Braun and Usher joined forces to help launch his career. A record label arrangement was created specifically for him. For the first time, Justin Bieber was no longer just a kid posting videos online. He was now entering the professional music industry. Yet one of the smartest decisions made during this period was surprisingly simple. Instead of abandoning YouTube, Braun encouraged Justin to keep posting. In fact, they deliberately preserved the homemade feeling of his videos. The grainy camera quality. The casual performances. The sense that viewers were discovering a talented kid before the rest of the world caught on. It felt authentic. It felt personal. And most importantly, it helped fans feel connected to him. Long before influencers understood the power of authenticity, Justin Bieber's team was already using it. Whether by design or instinct, they had discovered something powerful. People didn't just want to listen to Justin Bieber. They wanted to feel like they knew him. And that connection was about to become one of the most important factors behind his rise. Because in July 2009, Justin Bieber released the song that would introduce him to the world. A song called One Time. And from that moment forward, everything started moving much faster. When One Time was released in July 2009, Justin Bieber was already building a loyal audience online. But this was different. For the first time, he wasn't singing someone else's songs. This was his own music. His own identity as an artist. And the response was immediate. The song combined catchy pop melodies with R&B influences, creating something that felt both youthful and commercially accessible. The music video was simple, energetic, and carefully designed to appeal to a broad audience. Everything about the release worked. One Time quickly achieved platinum certification in both Canada and the United States. What had started as a collection of homemade YouTube videos was rapidly turning into a real career. A few months later, in November 2009, Justin released his debut EP, My World. The project was another success. His audience continued growing. Television appearances multiplied. Interview requests poured in. And perhaps most importantly, Justin appeared completely comfortable with all of it. For someone so young, he seemed unusually confident in front of cameras. He knew how to smile. How to perform. How to connect with people. By the end of 2009, he was already performing at major events, including a Christmas celebration attended by President Barack Obama. Think about that for a moment. In 2007, Justin Bieber was performing in local competitions and singing on street corners. Just 2 years later, he was performing for the President of the United States. And he was only 15 years old. Most careers take decades to reach that level. Justin had done it before finishing high school. But this was only the beginning. In March 2010, Justin released his first full studio album. My World 2.0, and with it came the song that would change everything. Baby. The song became a global phenomenon. It was impossible to escape. Radio stations played it constantly. Television channels played the music video non-stop. Schools, shopping malls, social media feeds, everywhere people turned, Justin Bieber seemed to be there. Commercially, the numbers were staggering. My World 2.0 debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart. More than 280,000 copies were sold during its first week alone. And when Justin launched his first major tour in June 2010, he was no longer just a promising young artist. He was officially a superstar. But even that word doesn't fully capture what was happening. Because Justin Bieber wasn't simply becoming famous. He was becoming a cultural phenomenon. The internet had never seen anything quite like it. Unlike previous generations of pop stars, Justin's rise happened alongside social media. His fans didn't just listen to his music. They followed his life in real time. They interacted with him online. They organized themselves into communities. They defended him. Promoted him. Obsessed over him. Soon, these fans became known as the Beliebers. And their influence was enormous. By 2010, Justin Bieber had become one of the most searched people on the entire internet. His social media following exploded. His videos accumulated hundreds of millions of views. His popularity reached levels that seemed almost impossible for someone his age. Part of the reason was obvious. Justin had talent. His voice appealed to a wide audience. His songs were easy to enjoy. His image fit perfectly with what the entertainment industry wanted at the time. He was young. Charismatic. Approachable. Marketable. But there was something else happening too. Justin Bieber wasn't just selling music. He was becoming a symbol. A symbol of a new generation growing up online. A generation that discovered celebrities through YouTube instead of television. A generation that felt personally connected to the people they followed. And that connection became incredibly powerful. His influence extended beyond music. His hairstyle became one of the most copied looks among teenagers. His fashion choices spread across schools and social media. For millions of young fans, Justin Bieber wasn't just an artist. He was the artist. The face of an entire era. From the outside, it looked like a dream. Money. Fame. Success. Adoration. Everything a young performer could possibly want. But hidden inside that success was a problem that few people fully understood at the time. The bigger Justin Bieber became, the more people seemed to resent him. And soon, the same internet that had helped make him famous would begin turning against him. By 2010, Justin Bieber had everything. Hit songs. A #1 album. Millions of devoted fans. And a level of fame that most artists never achieve in an entire lifetime. From the outside, his career looked unstoppable. But beneath the success, something unusual was beginning to happen. The more popular Justin became, the more people seemed determined to tear him down. And nowhere was that more visible than with Baby. At first, the song appeared to be another massive victory. The music video became one of the most watched videos on YouTube. Millions of people streamed it. Millions more shared it. For a while, it was the most viewed video on the entire platform. But Baby would become famous for another reason as well. It became one of the most disliked videos in YouTube history. At its peak, the video received more than 1 million dislikes. For many observers, it was confusing. Why this song? Why this artist? After all, Justin Bieber wasn't involved in major scandals. He wasn't publicly attacking anyone. He was still just a teenager making pop music. Yet the hostility continued to grow. The truth is that people weren't simply disliking a song. They were reacting to what Justin Bieber had come to represent. This marked the beginning of a phenomenon often referred to as Bieber bashing. A period when mocking Justin Bieber became a form of entertainment in itself. People criticized everything about him. His voice. His appearance. His haircut. His music. His personality. His fans. Entire videos were created solely to make fun of him. Memes spread across the internet. Television shows mocked him. Comedians mocked him. Even people who had never listened to his music often joined in. Looking back, one uncomfortable question emerges. Why were so many people eager to hate a 16-year-old boy? Part of the answer lies in the nature of fame itself. The larger someone's audience becomes, the larger their group of critics becomes as well. When billions of people know who you are, even a small percentage of dislike turns into millions of voices. But that doesn't fully explain what happened to Justin Bieber. There was something deeper going on. For some people, Justin represented everything they disliked about mainstream pop culture. His music was seen as overly commercial. His image was viewed as carefully manufactured. To critics, he wasn't an artist. He was a product. Whether that perception was fair or not didn't really matter. Once the narrative took hold, it spread rapidly. Then there was another factor. His fans. The Beliebers were among the most passionate fan communities on the internet. They defended Justin relentlessly. They organized online. They celebrated every achievement. And like many highly dedicated fan communities, they also attracted backlash. The stronger the fan base became, the stronger the opposition became. It's a pattern that has appeared repeatedly throughout entertainment history. The Beatles experienced it. Elvis Presley experienced it. Many K-pop groups experience it today. Extreme admiration often creates extreme hostility in return. But there may have been an even more uncomfortable explanation. Many journalists and cultural commentators later argued that some of the hatred directed at Justin Bieber wasn't really about Justin at all. It was about the people who loved him. His audience was largely made up of young girls. And historically, society has often treated the interests of teenage girls differently than the interests of other groups. When young women become passionate about something, they're often dismissed as irrational or obsessive. When men become equally passionate about sports teams, musicians, or hobbies, they're frequently described as dedicated fans. It's a double standard that has existed for decades. And Justin Bieber became caught in the middle of it. To some critics, mocking Justin Bieber was also a way of mocking the girls who supported him. Whether people realized it or not, those attitudes helped fuel the culture surrounding Bieber hate. Of course, not everyone who disliked Justin Bieber fit into these explanations. Some simply didn't enjoy his music. Others grew tired of hearing his songs everywhere. Some disliked the marketing. Some disliked the attention. The reasons varied. But together, they created something remarkable. A global environment where hating Justin Bieber became socially acceptable. Even fashionable. And the most troubling part was that Justin himself was still growing up while all of this was happening. Every joke. Every insult. Every hateful comment. Every death threat. He saw it all. Because unlike many celebrities before him, Justin wasn't growing up behind closed doors. He was growing up online. In front of millions of people. And eventually, that kind of pressure starts affecting even the strongest individuals. The world saw a global superstar. But behind the scenes, Justin Bieber was still just a teenager trying to figure out who he was. And the years ahead would prove that fame alone doesn't protect anyone from breaking under pressure. In fact, sometimes it makes the fall even harder. By the time Justin Bieber turned 18, something had changed. The smiling teenager who once seemed untouchable was beginning to disappear. Not overnight. Not through one dramatic event. But through a series of small cracks that slowly became impossible to ignore. On the surface, Justin was still one of the biggest stars in the world. His music continued to sell. His tours continued to fill arenas. His influence remained enormous. But behind the scenes, the pressure was becoming harder to escape. Part of that pressure came from growing up in public. As Justin entered adulthood, every aspect of his personal life became global news. Especially his relationship with Selena Gomez. The two young stars officially became a couple in 2011. The media loved them. Fans loved them. The internet even gave them a nickname, Yelena. To millions of people, they seemed like the perfect celebrity couple. But there was a darker side to that attention. Every date became a headline. Every rumor became a trending topic. Every argument became public discussion. The relationship wasn't simply theirs anymore. It belonged to the internet. And that meant every breakup, every reunion, and every emotional moment was analyzed by millions of strangers. For most teenagers, relationships are private experiences. For Justin Bieber, they became public entertainment. And it wasn't just Justin who suffered. The people around him suffered too. When Selena dated Justin, she received hate from some of his fans. When Justin moved on, his future partners faced similar treatment. It was as if anyone connected to Justin Bieber automatically became part of the spectacle. And the spectacle never stopped. Paparazzi followed him constantly. Cameras appeared wherever he went. Restaurants. Hotels. Airports. Streets. Everyday life became performance. There was no off switch. No private space. No opportunity to make mistakes without the entire world watching. And eventually, the consequences began to show. Around 2013, stories about Justin's behavior started appearing with increasing frequency. At first, many of them seemed relatively minor. He was photographed wearing a gas mask in London. He abandoned his pet monkey at an airport in Germany after failing to complete the necessary paperwork. Then came a video showing him urinating into a mop bucket inside a restaurant. The footage quickly spread online. Incidents like these generated endless headlines. And while some were immature rather than serious, they contributed to a growing public perception that Justin Bieber was spiraling. Unfortunately, things didn't stop there. Between 2013 and 2014, the controversies multiplied. Reports emerged involving reckless driving, speeding, conflicts with neighbors, public disturbances. In one incident, he was ordered to pay damages after throwing eggs at a neighbor's home. Individually, each story might have been survivable. Together, they painted a picture of a young star losing control. The public's opinion of Justin began to shift dramatically. People who once defended him started questioning him. The media became increasingly hostile. The headlines grew harsher. And then came the moment that seemed to confirm everyone's fears. In January 2014, Justin Bieber was arrested in Miami. Police stopped him while he was participating in an illegal street race. According to authorities, he had consumed alcohol, marijuana, and prescription medication. Investigators also discovered that he was driving without a valid license. The arrest quickly became international news. Within hours, images of Justin's mugshot were everywhere. For many people, those photos became the defining image of Justin Bieber's career. Not the talented kid from YouTube. Not the teenager singing for the president. Not the artist breaking records around the world. The mugshot. The scandal. The collapse. By this point, even major publications were openly discussing his downfall. Rolling Stone famously placed him on its cover with a simple label. Bad boy. The narrative had completely changed. Justin Bieber was no longer being discussed as a rising star. He was being discussed as a cautionary tale. And the problems extended beyond public perception. His music career also appeared to be losing momentum. While he remained commercially successful, he wasn't producing cultural moments on the same level as before. No major new album arrived. Rumors about his future became increasingly common. At one point, Justin even suggested he might retire from music entirely. Fans were confused. Observers were concerned. And years later, Justin would reveal just how serious things had become behind closed doors. During this period, many of his public appearances were made while under the influence of drugs or medication. What the public saw as reckless behavior was often connected to much deeper struggles. Substance abuse. Isolation. Exhaustion. The psychological cost of spending his entire adolescence in the spotlight. And that's when a difficult question begins to emerge. Was Justin Bieber simply making bad decisions? Or was the world watching something far more predictable unfold? Because when we look closely at the history of child stars, Justin's story doesn't seem unusual at all. In fact, it starts looking alarmingly familiar. When Justin Bieber's life began falling apart in public, many people treated it as entertainment. The headlines were everywhere. The arrests. The scandals. The embarrassing videos. The constant speculation about his mental state. For some, it felt like watching a celebrity get exactly what he deserved. But if we step back for a moment, an uncomfortable pattern begins to emerge. Because Justin Bieber wasn't the first child star to go through this. And he certainly wasn't the last. In fact, when you compare his story to those of other young celebrities, the similarities become difficult to ignore. Take Britney Spears. Like Justin, Britney became famous at an incredibly young age. She quickly transformed from a talented performer into one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. The world adored her. Then the pressure began. Every relationship became a headline. Every mistake became front-page news. Every personal struggle became public property. Eventually, the situation became so severe that Britney experienced a highly publicized mental health crisis. The same media that helped create her fame spent years documenting her collapse. Then there was Macaulay Culkin. The child actor who became a global superstar through Home Alone. At the height of his fame, he was one of the most recognizable children in the world. But as he entered adolescence, the pressure became overwhelming. His acting career stalled. Rumors spread constantly. The media became obsessed with stories about his personal life. Whether those stories were true or not often mattered less than the attention they generated. And then there was Drew Barrymore. Perhaps one of the most disturbing examples. After becoming famous at a very young age, Drew entered environments that no child should have been exposed to. She was reportedly attending nightclubs at 8 years old. Experimenting with drugs before most children had even reached middle school. By 13, she had already entered rehabilitation. By 14, she had attempted to take her own life. These stories are different. Different industries. Different personalities. Different circumstances. Yet somehow, they often end up following a similar trajectory. Early fame. Massive success. Loss of privacy. Psychological pressure. Self-destructive behavior. Crisis. The details change. The pattern remains. And that's where Justin Bieber's story becomes larger than Justin Bieber himself. Because at some point, we have to stop asking why individual child stars keep struggling. And start asking whether the system itself is the problem. For decades, society has been fascinated by child prodigies. Young actors. Young musicians. Young athletes. We celebrate them. We reward them. We place them on magazine covers. We turn them into household names. But we rarely stop to consider what that experience actually feels like. Most children are allowed to grow up gradually. They experiment with different identities. They make mistakes. They learn from those mistakes. And they do it away from public scrutiny. Child stars don't have that luxury. Their mistakes become news. Their awkward phases become memes. Their personal struggles become content. The audience watches everything. And often demands even more. The internet made this dynamic even more extreme. Previous generations of celebrities faced tabloids. Justin Bieber faced social media. Millions of people commenting on his appearance. His relationships. His behavior. His future. Every single day. The internet didn't simply observe Justin Bieber's adolescence. It participated in it. It judged it. And in many cases, it monetized it. For years, videos mocking Justin Bieber generated millions of views. Articles speculating about his downfall generated millions of clicks. Entire communities formed around discussing his mistakes. His struggles became profitable. And that's a reality that extends far beyond Justin Bieber. Because modern celebrity culture often creates a strange contradiction. We claim to care about young stars. But we're also fascinated when they fail. We celebrate their rise. Then obsess over their collapse. And somewhere in between, we forget that these are often children navigating pressures most adults would struggle to survive. By the mid-2010s, Justin Bieber appeared to be heading down the same path as many child stars before him. The trajectory felt familiar. Almost inevitable. And yet, unlike many others, his story wasn't over. Because while the public was busy documenting his downfall, something else was happening behind the scenes. For the first time in years, Justin Bieber decided to stop running. And start confronting the person he had become. When people talk about Justin Bieber's struggles, the conversation often focuses on the symptoms. The arrests. The drugs. The reckless behavior. The public meltdowns. But those things raise a more important question. Why does this happen so often? Why do so many child stars seem to follow the same path? Why do so many of them reach extraordinary heights, only to find themselves struggling years later? To answer that question, many researchers and former child performers have tried to understand what growing up in fame actually does to a person. One of the most insightful voices on the subject is actress Alison Stoner. Like many child performers, Stoner entered the entertainment industry at a very young age. Years later, she launched a project called Dear Hollywood, where she explored the hidden realities of child stardom through interviews, research, and personal experience. And according to Stoner, one of the biggest problems is something surprisingly simple. Many child stars never develop normal autonomy. For most people, childhood is a period of learning. You make mistakes. You face consequences. You slowly learn how to manage your own life. But child stars often grow up in environments where adults make nearly every important decision for them. Managers, agents, publicists, executives, parents. Entire teams of people are constantly involved. The child becomes the center of a business operation. As a result, some young celebrities reach adulthood without ever having the opportunity to develop basic independence in the same way their peers do. Stoner has spoken openly about how difficult ordinary adult responsibilities felt after leaving the industry. Tasks that many people take for granted sometimes became unexpectedly challenging. Because her childhood had been anything but ordinary. Then there's another issue. Something psychologists often refer to as adultification. In simple terms, it means children being pushed into adult roles long before they're emotionally ready. And entertainment industries are full of examples. Young performers are expected to handle adult responsibilities. Adult schedules. Adult expectations. Adult criticism. Sometimes even adult environments. They are encouraged to project maturity long before they fully understand what maturity means. And over time, that changes how they see the world. It can blur boundaries, distort priorities, and create a dangerous illusion that they are older than they really are. Justin Bieber's career reflects many of these dynamics. From the beginning, he was marketed as a romantic figure. The charming singer. The teenage heartthrob. The object of admiration for millions of fans. Yet behind that image was still a child. A child being asked to navigate pressures that most adults never experience. And there were moments when that reality became impossible to ignore. Looking back at some of Justin's early interviews today, certain interactions feel deeply uncomfortable. Adults frequently treated him less like a child and more like a celebrity product. Comments that would seem inappropriate in almost any other context were often laughed off because he was famous. Moments that should have raised concerns were instead treated as entertainment. At the time, few people questioned it. Today, many people see those clips very differently. Because they reveal something important. Justin Bieber wasn't simply growing up in public. He was growing up in an environment where normal boundaries often didn't exist. And that's where another problem emerges. The culture of always saying yes. Many child performers grow up believing that every opportunity must be accepted. Every audition. Every appearance. Every request. Because success feels fragile. Because opportunities feel rare. Because everyone around them is focused on maintaining momentum. Over time, this can make it difficult to establish healthy boundaries. Difficult to say no. Difficult to recognize situations that may be harmful. And in extreme cases, it can create conditions where exploitation becomes possible. Whether emotional, financial, or worse. This issue has become an increasingly important topic in recent years. Especially as more former child stars have spoken publicly about their experiences. The details vary from person to person. But the underlying theme remains remarkably consistent. Many child stars lose something essential during their rise to fame. Their childhood. The freedom to grow slowly. The freedom to fail privately. The freedom to discover who they are without millions of people watching. And perhaps that's the tragedy hidden beneath so many of these stories. From the outside, fame looks like a privilege. From the inside, it can become a cage. A beautiful cage. A profitable cage. A glamorous cage. But a cage nonetheless. And when a child spends years living inside that environment, the consequences often don't appear immediately. They appear later. Sometimes years later. When the cameras move on. When the applause fades. When the person is finally left alone with the parts of themselves they never had the chance to develop. For Justin Bieber, those consequences became impossible to ignore by the mid-2010s. The question was whether he could find a way out. Because unlike many former child stars, Justin still had something most people thought he had already lost. Time. A chance to change course. A chance to rebuild. And surprisingly, that's exactly what he attempted to do. By the end of 2014, Justin Bieber had reached a crossroads. For years, he had been running at full speed. From one tour to the next. From one controversy to the next. From one headline to the next. The pace had become unsustainable. Something had to change. So for the first time since becoming famous, Justin stepped away. He sought help from a close friend and pastor in New Jersey and spent several weeks living there. Away from the cameras. Away from the constant attention. Away from the machinery of celebrity. According to later interviews, this period became a turning point. He focused on his faith. He played sports. He spent time reflecting on the direction his life had taken. And perhaps most importantly, he finally allowed himself to slow down. For someone who had spent most of his adolescence under a microscope, that pause may have been exactly what he needed. The effects soon became visible. In 2015, Justin appeared on Where Are You Now, a collaboration with Skrillex and Diplo. The song was a massive success. But its significance went beyond chart positions. For many listeners, this felt like a different Justin Bieber. More mature. More vulnerable. More self-aware. The boy who once dominated teenage pop music seemed to be evolving into something new. Later that year, he released Purpose. An album that would become one of the defining moments of his career. Songs like What Do You Mean? Sorry, and Love Yourself dominated charts around the world. The album debuted at number 1. The singles became global hits. And perhaps for the first time in years, the conversation surrounding Justin Bieber began to change. People weren't just talking about his mistakes anymore. They were talking about his music again. But what made Purpose so important wasn't simply its commercial success. It felt like an attempt at redemption. A public acknowledgement that something had gone wrong. A recognition of the damage caused during those chaotic years. And a desire to move forward. The image changed. The music changed. The audience changed. Many people who had dismissed Justin during his teenage years suddenly found themselves taking him seriously. The artist who had once been viewed as a manufactured pop star was now earning respect from entirely different audiences. Yet redemption stories are rarely simple. Life doesn't suddenly become easy once a person decides to change. The pressures never completely disappeared. The scrutiny never completely disappeared. The internet never completely disappeared. In 2018, Justin married model Hailey Baldwin. The relationship quickly became another source of public fascination. Every appearance. Every rumor. Every social media post generated discussion. Years later, concerns about his health, his behavior, and his well-being would continue to surface online. Even today, speculation about Justin Bieber remains constant. Because that's one of the realities of becoming famous as a child. The public never stops watching. The audience that helped create you often struggles to let you become someone else. But perhaps one of the most meaningful moments in Justin's story came through another young artist. Billie Eilish. Before becoming a global superstar herself, Billie was a devoted Justin Bieber fan. Her admiration was so intense that her parents reportedly considered therapy because of how emotionally invested she had become. Years later, the situation would come full circle. Billie became one of the biggest young stars in the world. And suddenly, she found herself facing many of the same pressures Justin had experienced years earlier. The overwhelming attention. The loss of privacy. The weight of global fame at a young age. When asked about Billie, Justin's response revealed something important. He didn't speak like a celebrity. He spoke like someone who understood. Someone who had already lived through it. Someone who knew how dangerous that experience could be. He said that if Billie ever needed him, he would be there. Because he didn't want her to go through what he had gone through. And perhaps that's the ultimate lesson of Justin Bieber's story. Not that fame is bad. Not that success is dangerous. But that childhood is fragile. And once it's gone, no amount of money, attention, or success can bring it back. Justin Bieber became one of the most famous people on earth before he was old enough to understand what that meant. The world watched him rise. The world watched him stumble. The world watched him break. And in many ways, the world helped cause those wounds. Yet despite everything, he survived. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But he survived. And maybe that's why his story continues to resonate. Because beneath the headlines, the records, the controversies, and the fame, Justin Bieber's life forces us to confront a simple question. What happens when a child is asked to carry the weight of an entire world? For Justin Bieber, the answer was complicated. Painful. Messy. And at times, heartbreaking. But it also became a reminder that behind every child star is still a child. And perhaps that's something the world too often forgets.